Sony Cyber RX100 IV, small camera, big video, Sony's pocket powerhouse. The Sony Cyber RX100 IV, M4, is less of a clear upgrade over its predecessor the RX100 III, M3, than a forked alternative. For a variety of reasons, I'd classify it as an advanced compact for video enthusiasts rather than a straight-up advanced compact, at least until the price drops a bit. Though it's more expensive and adds a plethora of video capabilities, it pretty much delivers the same photo quality in the same body. Officially priced at $950, the M4 goes up against the less expensive Panasonic RX100 $800, which also shoots 4K, though doesn't offer quite the breadth of video-related features that the M4 does. Despite using a completely new but same size and resolution sensor, the images from the M4 look quite similar to those from the M3. The new stacked CMOS sensor, branded XMR-RS, gives the photo sites their own layer while the circuits occupy the layer beneath. But the modification doesn't seem to have had a big impact on photo quality. It displays slightly better noise performance above ISO 800, with more detail preserved in dark areas, but nothing jumps out as wow better. The photo quality is still quite good, sharp with decent color and tonal range, though I don't think surpasses the lower resolution but larger sensor RX100. There isn't a lot of detail to recover in the highlights. The video quality is very good, as sharp as you'd expect from 4K. While I prefer the more accurate rendering the RX100 produces with little fiddling, the RX100 IV has tons of controls to get the results you want along with a quieter lens and adjustment dial. The new sensor uses high-speed processing and additional memory below the circuitry for passing the image data along to the next stop and the process a lot faster. Sony also claims that this speed improvement defeats the jello and leaning verticals that you see during fast horizontal movement. There's still quite a bit of wobble that comes from camera shake when the image stabilizer is in standard mode. That's the best you can get when shooting 4K. Though you can start to see the beginnings of artifacts at ISO 800 in JPEGs, the images are still quite clean. JPEG photos start to look a little mushy by ISO 1600, especially in out-of-focus areas, but images retain enough detail in the subject areas to be usable up through ISO 12800, depending upon lighting conditions. At low ISO sensitivities, this is ISO 200, the RX100 IV and RX100 III JPEGs look extremely similar. The M4 does have a slightly pinker cast. When you remove all the noise processing from the raw file, you can see the RX100 IV has a slightly better noise profile at high ISO sensitivities. This is ISO 3200. The camera's colors are a little cool and the default standard creative style shifts the hues a bit, but the colors are still pleasing. The RX100 M4 really does improve over the M3 in most though not all aspects of performance, and ranks as one of the fastest compacts we've seen. Like other cameras with zoom lenses, and unchanged from the M3, it's relatively slow to start up since you've got to wait for the lens to extend. Once extended, though, it's consistently fast, about 0.20.3 second to focus and shoot, regardless of lighting conditions, and 0.2 second for 2 sequential shots, in both RAW and JPEG. With flash enabled the time increases to about 2.3 seconds, also unchanged from the M3. The biggest deal for the M4 is its much hyped continuous shooting performance. On one hand, its tested rate of 5.7 frames per second for JPEGs and 5 FPS for RAW, both for at least 30 shots and with autofocus, is very good for this class. But the camera's actual high-speed shooting is far more complex than the spec conveys. With the mechanical shutter enabled and with autofocus, it drops to 2.4 FPS, the faster rates require the electronic shutter. One of the differences between the M4 and its predecessors is the ability to manually select mechanical or electronic shutter, though there's still an auto option. In the limited number of situations where you can forego autofocus and auto exposure, usually when people are standing in one place and moving just parts of their bodies, Sony's Speed Priority Continuous can do 10 fps with the mechanical shutter and 16 fps with electronic. There's quite a wait for the camera to process the photos before you can get into playback or the menus, though it doesn't stop you from continuing to shoot. The autofocus works pretty well, although when you use continuous f and see the way it pulses for every exposure you can tell why the burst with f is so much slower. I didn't have much luck with the object tracking autofocus either, as, like most, it's easily distracted by objects which cross your subject's path. The single-shot autofocus is pretty good, but the wide area f Sony's version of leaving the choice of f subject to the camera performs about as well as other cameras. That is, when zoomed out it selects everything in the scene and when zoomed in it selects the closest objects.